The Five Rings Podcast, Road to Tokyo on the Sports Podcasting Network. Your weekly fix leading up to the 2020 Olympic Games with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramée. Follow us and listen to us live on Twitter at Five Rings Podcast and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network for more content.
So Duane, welcome to my studio. This is where the magic happens every day, and this is my brand new supercomputer. I don't know if I've shown you this computer before, but it's really cool.
It looks pretty cool. Is that a big red button there? I love big red buttons. Should we push that and find out what happens?
No, don't! I think we've arrived. I think we've traveled back in time. This is Vancouver 2010. 10 years later. Oh my God.
Instantly.
yeah, instantly. We're back in 2010. How you doing? I'm Kevin Laramée with Duane Rollins. This is a special, fun show that we wanted to do to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of... Yes, Vancouver 2010. We didn't exist back then. That's why we had to take the time machine. But how you doing, Duane, today?
I'm doing well. And like I say, when I heard that music, I haven't heard it in probably 5-6 years, but I instantly started both getting excited and twitching.
Like anxiety. Just a little anxiety just came on at the same time.
If you don't remember, folks, oh my God, that music was everywhere.
That music was, exactly. It was fitting. I got my jean jacket. I got my non-shaved face. It is 2010 after all. And fun time looking at Vancouver 2010. We didn't exist back then, and I was not even a resident of Montreal in 2010. I was still living in Oakville. What can you tell us about your situation in 2010, how different it might have been from today?
I wasn't too far from you. I would have been in 2010. Where was I? Oh, I was in the GTA for sure. I mean, I moved back to the Greater Toronto area in 2006, so I was here. But whether I was in Mississauga or Toronto, I'm not sure. I think I actually was in Mississauga at the time. But nonetheless, watching this every second of this, very excited about this Vancouver Games. I can still remember, Kevin, seeing the Jean Chrétien at the IOC headquarters with giving a thumbs up with the Mounties behind him when they got the games announced. So it was very surreal to see the games even start in 2010. And if you know me and if you're listening to the show, you know how much I love the games. I remember Calgary. You do not. I remember Calgary, but I was young, so I didn't appreciate it in the same way. This was just everything. This was so exciting leading up to this games. I like every other Canadian was, looking at the rosters of the hockey for 2 years before that, wondering how many medals it could get it, and wondering whether the Own the Podium initiative, which had started in 2005 and had borne some fruit in Turin, but maybe not as much as they would have hoped.
You know what I remember from Turin? There's only one thing I remember from Torino, Duane. A sad Wayne Gretzky on the bench. That's what I remember from Torino.
Well, that's Nagano, Kevin.
Oh, that's Nagano? My God, they all blend in. I guess it was pre Five Rings podcast, of course. We started with the 2014 Winter Olympic Games. This is the one Olympic game we didn't cover before over the last decade, and it's going to be fun to take a look at the highlights, at the big moments, and doing some research. Of course, there were some great moments, sad moments, of course. You see on your screen now, Nodar Kumaritashvili, who died the day before the games, and then maybe let's start there, because it was how these games started for me. I was really excited, and I was living in Ontario at that time, and it was like I was working part-time, full-time, kind of a lot of free time, and not a lot of whole thing to do in my life. So it was a point where I had a TV in my room, and I was watching a lot of TV, and the bar was across the street, and I was watching a lot of Olympics at the bar. But that morning, watching the streams on the internet, so it was the beginning of that too, right? In 2010, the streams and being able to watch everything on demand or live, but not on TV. I was watching the luge practice because for me, it's always fascinating to see the speed. It's the first look you get at the track and Whistler, Blackcomb, but you had that whole area that was beautiful to see. And that day, the practice run, I remember And that sound, the images, watching live, that thud still resonates in the back of my mind. It was a sad moment, but I guess that's my first memory of the 2010 Olympic Games.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it was a moment that was just so disappointing on so many levels because there was so much excitement heading into it, and then for that to happen just on the eve of the games really put a damper over it, as you can understand, because it really questioned a lot of things about the safety in that. Now, it turns out that it was a one-off incident and an unfortunate accident that did occur. But, to this day, I still suspect that the designer of that track has some major major
regrets?
concerns about, regrets is the word I was looking for, over that post that they put there, which didn't need to be there. And then that's really the one fix made it safer.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot more padding over the years. Of course, the track design has been better, but also still very dangerous over the years. I just remember in Sochi, there was a lot of concern, same for Pyeongchang. I remember in Sochi, remember we talked about this, they cut the track a bit, and they did the same in Vancouver to make sure the speeds were not too much. But that's how the games started. And then, of course, the Olympic ceremony is when it actually started. This great moment in Canadian history, the Olympic ceremony in our stadium in Vancouver, and for some reason, we cannot get the lighting of a freaking torch right.
Oh, this is a rant that I've gone on before. If you listen back to our Montreal retrospective, which is ongoing right now, don't worry, we're getting that boxing one out soon. We talked at the length about this, about how we try and get cute when it comes to the flame torture, and we try and be everything to everyone, and this is the Canadian way, but it doesn't work for this. What's the one iconic flame lighting that everyone remembers from recent times? It's Muhammad Ali in Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot that went wrong with the Atlanta Games. I mean, there was a bombing, it was overly corporate, there was doping
Coca-Cola,
allegations. A lot to not like about Atlanta, but one thing we all remember is Muhammad Ali with his Parkinson's standing there with the flame, and such a great moment, bringing a guy back to the Olympic moment. That's because they had the, to pick one person and risk offending other people and say, this is our guy. Canada doesn't do that. They try and put multiple people to make everyone happy, and instead it made no one happy. I don't even remember. Well, there were 6 people that lit the cauldron at once, right, inside the stadium.
Was it 4? I thought it was 4.
There was many.
But the thing is, 6 people carrying the flag, and Jacques Villeneuve, I remember famously, he was one of these 6 for some reason. Oh, and then sad Wayne Gretzky on the pickup truck that you can see on your television screen right now. Oh, that look on Wayne Gretzky's face when he's in the pickup truck. Be like, yep, I'm just here. I'm just being carried around. And then the failed lighting of the cauldron. But no, 4 people were there to lit the cauldron, and the one arm that didn't really go up correctly, unfortunately, is the first guest in the history of this show also. Katrina Lemaidon, double Olympic champion, gold medal. It's her arm that didn't go up, unfortunately. She had nothing to do with it, but she's infamously remembered for that also.
Well, yeah, she would have been fine to light it on her own. Nancy Green would have been fine to light it on her own. She's a very, an older lady that was one of Canada's first Olympic heroes. Any hockey player on earth would have been fine.
Yeah.
Pam Smule of the Vancouver Canucks would have been better than what they did. Wayne Gretzky would have been perfect in my mind.
Just let Gretzky light the damn thing.
Yeah.
Well, without the whole shebang of him freaking being a pickup truck for 45 minutes.
Exactly. They had a second, for those that don't remember, or if you didn't watch it at all, they had the 2 flames. So they took a bit of the flame from the actual one above the stadium, gave it to Gretzky, and had him ride through the streets of Vancouver in the pouring rain with drunks running up to the truck and him standing there looking miserable with the flame that's barely out. Oh, my God. It was like so anticlimactic.
First of all, who designed that thing? Like, you're in Vancouver in February. Guess what? It's probably going to rain. So why would you? Oh, my God.
No, it was just badly thought out. And all you really, like I said, I thought in the lead up to this that it should have been Wayne Gretzky, the most recognizable Canadian athlete of the last half of this century. Regardless of his Olympic history, I thought it would have been perfect. I mean, Muhammad Ali wasn't known, as I just said, as probably one of the best lights ever, wasn't known as an Olympian. He was an Olympian, but he wasn't really known as one. He's known as a professional boxer, and this, I think, would have been appropriate. But if you had picked Nancy Green, as I said, I would have been happy with that, too. Just go with one person. Anyway, yeah, Kevin, when we get into our medals, this might come up again. So we'll just leave it at that for now. But yeah, this is how the game started. I do want to say that the opening ceremonies on a whole, they were a little predictable. You get your Aboriginal aspect in there, which you have to have in a Canadian one too, and it was kind of hokey at times. But there were some great things in that. I really remember the Katie Lang performance of Hallelujah, which is just a beautiful rendition of that famous Leonard Cohen song. Mm-hmm. That was a real highlight for me. I mean,
the snowboarder jumping through the rings wasn't one.
Yeah, and the violin. I forget the name of the band, but they played the violin song. He's an East Coast guy. That was kind of fun too. Really upbeat, sort of part of these ceremonies. It wasn't on a scale of London to Albertville, from London being the best and Albertville being the weirdest, craziest, one of the modern ones. I mean, we talked about Montreal.
I love your scale. It's like, someone please make a graphic of like the first one, like London, with the amazing spectacle of the green hills and the houses, and then do Albertville with people dancing on skis.
Yeah, Albertville. God, I love the French people, but oh my God, that was a cliche of France in a nutshell. That one, but at any rate. Of that scale, it's probably somewhere in the middle. It was fine. It was good. There were parts that I liked. And being a Canadian, obviously, it was emotional to see the games back in my home country. Unfortunately, I was too poor to get out there, but I knew lots of people that did.
It's expensive to go to Vancouver, and it's far. It's kind of like almost easier to get to Europe than it is to get to Vancouver.
Easier to get to London, yeah.
So, yeah.
Anyway, so the ceremonies were fine. But yes, Wayne Gretzky in a pickup truck, as I said, I can't believe here.
I can't stop laughing. All right. Before we go on and talk about our medals and literally talk about the games, it's 10 years later. Let's look at the legacy, of course, of these games. A big legacy of this, who was supposed to only stay for 2 years. The commitment after the games was for 2 years, and then it was perpetuated for more, and that's the Own the Podium program from the government of Canada. And there's also private programs now similar to Own the Podium that are generating a lot of revenues, a lot of money for the elite athlete in this country, to give him a chance to make that leap from top 10, top 5 to a medal in the Olympics. Own the Podium is maybe the biggest legacy of the 2010 Olympic Games.
For sure, the awarding of the games, heading into Vancouver, Canada had the infamous distinction of being the only host country to not win a gold medal. Not once, but twice.
Vancouver and Calgary. Calgary and Montreal.
Montreal, yeah. Now, I could, when we talk about, we're going to talk about doping in the Montreal series, and I will make my case that Canada gets a bad rap for its performance in Montreal, that they would have won some gold medals had the games been on the straight and narrow. But Calgary for sure was, maybe in many ways, as much as it was a fun time, it was a low point in terms of the performance of our athletes. And that's what I grew up in. I grew up loving the Olympics when Canada, quite frankly, sucked. We were way underperforming. I'll be blunt about it. It was embarrassing how bad we were.
I remember when I was a kid, Duane, just being happy when we had someone in the top 15. Like, all right, we had a Canadian on the screen. We never get that. That's amazing.
Making a finals, they had someone to cheer for. Yeah, no,
especially in the summer ones. But this is a Vancouver show, so the winter one.
Yeah, so it was really bad. I mean, there were highlights in Calgary, and maybe we'll talk about that games one day down the road. But they didn't really come close to a gold medal. They were plucky underdogs at home, and that's just not the way. But for this one, finally something clicked within the Canadian government, within the COA. They said, no, if we want to compete with the purpose of the Olympics is excellence, right? And what are we doing if we're just, with the wealth we have, doing this, particularly on the winter side? It was kind of beggared belief that they weren't winning more medals on the winter side. So they put the money in it. They put their money where their mouth was with the Own the Podium program. And that started, as I said, in the Turin Games, where they did have a better Olympics. I believe they won something like 12 medals in Turin, which was a much better performance than we had been used to. 3 or 4 golds in there as well. And then suddenly in Vancouver, it all changed, and it worked out. Spoiler alert, it worked. They won the medal standings. Yeah. But
Spoiler
it was
alert.
Absurd. If you had been as me as a kid that grew up, it was what we're on top of the. No, we won the official ones, not the ones they show on TV. We were
the gold ones. Yeah, we won the amount of gold medals with 14 versus not the amount of total medals, because there was countries with 30 and 37. We had 28 or something like that, but 14 gold medals.
So it was absolutely a success. And as you say, in terms of a legacy, this continues. Canada is now a superpower on the winter side. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Top 5 country in the world, any given Olympic Games in the winter side for sure.
Yeah, and I would call them a middle power on the summer side. It had a trickle effect to the summer games, and I think I'm doing my preliminary research for Tokyo, and we already are seeing on the team side where Canada has qualified a record number of teams to go to those games. And if you look at the medal contenders on the summer side of the games, which we'll get into a lot more detail in the days ahead, they're in line for having a 2025 medal games, which puts them solidly as a middle power in the summer side. Considering we're covered in ice half the year, I'll take that.
Considering there's countries like the United States of America and, I was going to say Russia. Probably not Russia. That's another topic for another day.
That's a different topic, but yeah.
Okay. Another quick legacy of this is for my... I wouldn't call myself a gamer in 2020. Haven't played in a while. But one of the legacies of this Vancouver 2010, Duane, is one of the best Olympic video games ever made. The Vancouver 2010 PlayStation 2, I believe, and Xbox 360. So that would be PlayStation 2. No, PlayStation 3. PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. The Vancouver 2010 Olympic game is one of the best Olympic games ever done on a video game platform, and I still have it, and I still play it from time to time. The bobsleigh, I like the short track speed skating. It's quite enjoyable.
I didn't have the opportunity, but I'll tell you what, for the first time in 10 years, there is an Olympic game coming out this year. First time, and I think there might have been one out in 14 as well, but there is a game.
No, in 14 there wasn't one, but there was one like on the Wii, but I wouldn't count them as official. 2012 London was a great one too. The last two ones made by the same company. I think it was Konami, and for across platforms. And then it's like went to Sonic the Hedgehog in the Olympic Games. You're like, what? Just keep making bad movies, please. Don't come into my video game Olympic world.
But I do believe there is scheduled to be a legit one out again in 2020. There was a Sonic one too, but it's for the Switch. But at any rate, if you're into Sonic, knock your socks off. It's not really what we're talking about here.
No, exactly. Well, if you look at the loose track, though, it's kind of similar to the thing that he runs on to get the rings. But, and he gets rings, and we're the Five Rings podcast, so maybe Sonic is going to make an apparition here. But I just wanted to mention it, that it was one of my favorite video games ever.
Fair enough. And look, I mean, there was a lot about Vancouver 2010 from a global Olympic standpoint that was kind of a changing point too. You mentioned watching the streams, and I certainly were watching those early streams too in the days leading up to the games. Not just the preliminary hockey games, which started on the women's side a couple days before, just like we'll see on soccer in the summer, but also all of the training runs for skiing and for, unfortunately, Lucian bobsled, as we talked about a minute ago. This was the beginning of the OTT revolution within sports. We didn't have that term back then.
I was going to say, OTT wasn't even a thing. Like, even CBC did not have a dedicated app. They're just like a CBC Sports app, which still exists. But, yeah, it just illustrated the beginning of the streaming era.
Yeah, and you were still kind of in a middle kind of transition period in 2010. You had the opportunity to watch certain things on demand, but it wasn't like now where you literally would wake up and go, I'm watching archery. There's not archery in the summer games, or winter games, but you know what I mean. You can now, and this was kind of that weird sort of in between stage. So we really were. I joked off the top about the song, Kevin. One of the reasons it's so ingrained in my head is because we still kind of were mostly watching this on network television in 2010, and that's a major difference between how we'll experience Tokyo this year. Or what commercials I'm seeing constantly. I'm sure if you had ran one of the whatever the hell Tim Hortons was saying back then, I would instantly know it again, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's not quite the case anymore, thank God.
Yeah, thank God that song is no more, because it was a song of the consortium. So that's why I believe it is no more, and I'm happy about it. All right, let's start the actual deep dive into 2010, Vancouver 2010. So we went into the time machine. We're back. The games just wrapped up, Duane. We've just finished our daily shows about the Vancouver 2010 games. Let's start with a wood medal. Let's start with the wood. We oftentimes starts with the wood, and I'll let you start with your wood medal for the overall 2010 Vancouver Olympic Games.
Before I get into that, this is a very Canadian list I make. I usually try to be a little bit more international in this, but this games was very Canadian for me in a lot of ways, and a lot of Canadians. Okay. So forgive me on that. But
no, it's okay. We were giving ourselves the right to be homers on this one because these games happen in Canada, and we're a Canadian-based show. And when's the next time the games are going to be in Canada? Well, maybe not in my lifetime, maybe not in Duane's lifetime. So let us indulge ourselves on this one.
I suspect we'll have another Winter Games in our lifetime, but we'll see.
True, because we'll be the only place left in this world with winter if global warming continues. There'll be Canada and the Arctic Pole, and then the rest of the Kevin Costner water world. But let's not think about this too soon.
Yellowknife 2032. My wood.
That's a summer game. Though.
My wood medal goes to Wayne Gretzky in a goddamn pickup truck. Why? We've already talked about this. We won't belabor it, but that's my wood medal. Like, and just the start of the games, if I want to be general. We mentioned the tragedy. I don't want to make light of that, but there was a lot of hiccups in the lead-ups to the game. They quickly were forgotten, as they often are. I remember there was this article that was written in The Guardian where this pissy British journalist came in and ripped upon how boring we were and all that sort of stuff. And it was all this, there was a lot of negativity in the lead up that week before. And a lot of news organizations, as journalists, are apt to always look for the cynical. And I have been one of them, so I can say that. Look for the negative, and this did not help. It was not a smooth start. And so that's kind of my wood medal, which is epitomized by Wayne Gretzky standing in the pissing rain with drunks running at him in a pickup truck.
I just posted the image again because it's so funny. Like, he looks at you like your dog looks at you after you just told him no, that you're not going for a walk. Like, oh, okay, fine. I'll just hold on to the rail and I'll hold on to the light on the other one. And I'm just going to be here. All right, my wood medal here is a bit towards the legacy of these games. It's not related to the actual events. And it's the Richmond Hill. It's the Richmond, actually, the Olympic Oval for Richmond, where the speed skating was happening, was changed into an athletic center with more of a civilian type of vocation. So it's unfortunate that it's not conserved its idea, and it was one of the few covered long rinks in Canada for speed skating. It would have been great to see the legacy and maybe see the long speed skating program being better in Canada with this. And it's unfortunate that it has changed. It's of course still used for multi-purposes, and it's still sports related, so that's good. It's not a freaking zoo like the Velodrome in Montreal, which I'm still mad at, and I wasn't even born. All right. But as you can see behind me, it's the studio that I chose to have for today. Also, the Richmond Oval. That's my wood medal. At least it stayed in the sports world, but it's unfortunate that its true vocation wasn't respected fully. And look, I wasn't even covering the games back then. Maybe it was always into the plans to make this multi-purpose athletic center after the games, maybe. But god damn it, I wish sometimes we would just keep the vocation and the identity of these landmarks projects that were built for a purpose, and keep that purpose and that vocation Olympic related.
Well, and there's a ways to find a middle ground too between community use and elite use after the games. And if you look at the Milton Velodrome in here for the Pan Am Games,
bingo check. We talked about the Milton Velodrome in the Pan Am Games, so you can put a check on that.
Yeah, there you go. Well, they are multi-use now. They have like basketball courts in the middle between the track. They have access to community, use to them. You can learn to do cycling on the track there, which is not something you can do in many parts of the country. But they also have the ability to still have elite races there. They have had some events, not anything close to what they once had, but they can, and they continue to do that. And I think it would have been nice to have, utilize the center of the track a bit more and other areas of that facility and still maintain the track. And that's particularly the case when you look at the fact the Olympic Oval in Calgary is 32 years old now.
The one in Montreal was outside and never stayed, because there was one here in Montreal. It wasn't Olympic game related, but it was one here. But no, it's to the point, yeah.
Yeah, so, and there is concern about the long-term the long-termness of the Calgary Oval. It's still there for now, but if they lose that, then Canada's advantage in the speed skating game is going to drop significantly and I can't see them building one without another game.
I was going to say, unless they get another Olympic game in Calgary soon, we're not going to see improvement to that infrastructure.
Yeah, and I don't know one's going to cheer for how that would happen in the near future, because that would involve the virus not getting under control soon.
Because even then, Vancouver might get them before that, because,
I think Vancouver would be one of the prime candidates to get that before. I think that's, relevant to this podcast right now. because these facilities, for the most part, are still around.
Ski
they
jumping,
have
of
converted
course.
some of them and downsized some of them, but it would be fairly easy to get them back up to standard. And, I mean, we're an arena country, so
Yes, not a
it's
problem.
just like the States with the World Cup. It's
That's not
easy
a
for us to
problem.
find enough rinks.
That's not a problem. And when you're looking at the venues, it's the ski jumping venues. These the type of venues that are more difficult to get done. And guess what? Well, these exist. The loops, the ski jumping, and the mountains and everything. Yeah, that still exists. And that so that's my wood medal for Vancouver 2010. Is the Richmond Oval being turned into a multi-purpose athletic center. Now, let's go into the kitchen. Let's get ourselves a snack. Let's give a poutine medal for a great Canadian performance in the 2010 Vancouver Olympic Games.
I'm going to cheat a little bit here. If people remember these games, there was an incredible momentum in the final weekend where Canada just kept getting medals. And it all kind of started on the Thursday night. The Thursday night of the final weekend, so just before the weekend started, was the quarterfinals of the men's hockey tournament. It was the gold medal game of the women's tournament happened that day as well. So you had the women win gold. A few hours later, you had the men defeat Russia fairly handily. I believe it was 7-2 was the score. So that was a significant sort of indicator that the most cherished goal of all was in grasp, right? And then immediately, I can still remember this. I was at Yonge and Eglinton in downtown Toronto watching this with Ben Rycroft. This is a true story. We had just recorded a podcast. I just now remember where I lived. Anyway, so I was at the Yonge and Eglinton bar. We immediately covered this. We watched the third period of Canada. They immediately cut to Kelly Humphreys.
Yeah.
Say what you want about her now, but she was Canadian then.
Former Canadian, now American. But yeah, go ahead.
Who was trailing the American team, America won, with fairly significantly for bobsled. She was like 2 or 3 seconds, or maybe not that, maybe 0.2 of a second. Or something.
Yeah, it was like almost half a second if I remember.
Yeah.
Like that.
At any rate, the Americans, they show her route. We've just cut from having Canada win it. The crowd is buzzed in more ways than one, and
drunk.
They're just roaring for this Canadian. Was the one pops up as they cross the line first. They still have the Americans to go down. And we're watching this American female bobsled team in this packed bar of drunk Canadian hockey fans, and they're roaring at every mistake she makes. And when she crossed that line and the two flashed up, this bar lost its damn mind over women's bobsled. And this is in Toronto, so that tells you a little bit of what was happening in the country. It was really incredible to experience. We're very reserved people normally. And that's part of I like that sometimes, but it's also nice to be proud of what you are and who you are and what you represent. And that last weekend really let Canada puff out its chest for the first time in a long time, and it was just incredible to be part of it. And that it's the bar and that bobsled that always speaks to me the most when I think back to that.
Yeah, that does make sense. Let's go to my poutine medal for these games. Yes, it's a gold medal that I'm giving for a poutine medal, but it's a sport that I kind of discovered with the 2010 Vancouver Olympic Games. Snowboard cross, ski cross, snowboard cross. This in the women's snowboard cross here. Mel Ricker from Canada getting the gold medal here. It's impressive. It's fast. It's aggressive as a sport. It's dangerous. It's a bit of pushing and shoving. It's very Canadian because you can actually physically get in there and can jerk around and you can actually do some great things on that slope. It's physically fun to see, big, impressive turns, jumps, and it's a race. It's like almost a NASCAR type of race going down a hill. It's very instinctive when you're watching it. It's like, yeah, first one to go down the hill wins, but you got to stay up first. I discovered the snowboard cross at that moment, as the entire world mainstream discovered the beauty of this sport now that has become one of the great moments of a Winter Olympic Games. And in 2010, Mala Ricker from Canada won the gold medal and made me discover this beautiful sport that is a snowboard cross in this example, but the same for ski cross also.
Oh, for sure. It remains one of my favorite games in the games now. Of these sort of export influence games or events that came into the Olympic Winter Games have really done a lot to take what was a very niche product, the Winter Games, in many, many ways, and make it more mainstream and more accessible and more exciting for more people. And then that was certainly a great moment there, as was the moguls to start the games off. I don't know if you have that in this list, so I'll leave it at that
don't.
for now.
I actually don't. I forgot about it. But Alexandre Bilodeau winning the first gold medal for Canada in these games was a couple days in. And
with his brother, and yeah.
It was with his brother there. It was a great moment. I actually don't have it. There's a few moments that I actually forgot. You just talked to me now. It was like, wow. And if you're looking for the golden goal, if you're looking for Sidney Crosby in our medals, we're going to start now. You're not going to find it. It would be too easy. We do appreciate Sid the Kid and his golden goal against the United States in overtime to give Canada the gold medal in ice hockey. It's always weird when I see ice hockey. I'm like, oh yeah, we're the ice hockey, and they're just the regular hockey.
We're outliers, yeah. No, for sure. I made that a rule. We can't have that. It's too easy. I mean, it was our friend Rudy Schuler made a list for the Sporting News of the top 10 Canadian sporting moments of the decade, at the turn of the decade, obviously, a few weeks ago, and it was number one, like across all sports. So it's an obvious pick, and I might have the opportunity to talk about hockey in a minute again, but it certainly, that tournament mattered a lot to a lot of people that don't normally care about the Olympics at all. And it was sort of framed the entire Olympics. And I thank God he scored that goal, because it really changed how we look back on it, right?
Yeah, after the bad performance in Torino, not even making the medals. And yeah, that was not good. Yeah, Gretzky as a team builder. No, thank you. But 2010 was different. Here we go. Let's look at our medals for the Vancouver 2010 Olympic Games. Duane, your bronze medal for the Winter Olympic Games held in Canada 10 years ago.
By now, our loyal Five Rings listeners will know that during the Winter Games, I like to talk a lot about one sport in particular that really does offer the spine of a games to me, and that is the curling events, the Bombspiel on both sides, the men's and the women. We now have the mixed event as well. This was really where that love affair began. I always liked curling. I did. I enjoy watching it. I covered it a couple times professionally, and it's a very enjoyable sport to do. I like the strategy of it and all that, but I didn't really love it until this tournament, and Canada was just outstanding in it. And as I said, it happens, there's 3 draws a day, so there were still a few less events now than there is even now back then, so a lot of downtime is filled by curling, and it's really kind of a rhythm. You can kind of rest and watch curling too, so that
Are you saying it's not eventful?
You don't have to stare intently at the stage. You can look away for a few minutes, and there's something nice and relaxing about that when after you've just watched like bobsled for an hour.
Yeah.
So at any rate, the point I'm making here is that Canada did very well. And it was a very enjoyable Bombspiel 4-me tournament, and it was nice that we got a gold and a silver in this. And also, the 2 athletes, the 2 skips in this that got the gold and silver, were both they were a little older. Kevin Martin and Cheryl Bernard were the 2 skips of the Canadian teams. Both of them were 43 years old at the start of the Olympics. This is not a term that probably would work anymore, but Cheryl Bernard was kind of universally known as the Vancouver. The Vancouver, get it? Cougar?
Yeah,
anyway,
we get it. It's just,
exactly. During the games. She's on the screen. She was really a face of it. And unfortunately, she ended up coming down sick before the gold medal game, and they came up just short and won a silver. The Swedish team won the gold there. Kevin Martin was dominant, going undefeated through this. One of the greatest curling teams of all time. Kevin Martin was a 90s 2010 curling legend in this country, and it was ultimately it came off with this gold medal. So I'm giving my overall bronze medal to the 2010 Olympics to Kevin Martin and Cheryl Bernard for their dominant performance in front of the home crowd and the pressure. We talked about hockey pressure. There's an equal amount of pressure for the curlers as well. They're expected to win.
Yeah. It's harder to win best in Canada and to qualify for the Canadian national team in curling than it is to win world championships. So that's obviously a great choice. My bronze medal this time around, the beginning of a love affair with a country, with 2 individuals looking like they're gliding on ice, looking like they can do anything without any effort on a nice surface. The love affair of Canada began with Tessa Virtue and Scott Moir in 2010, and that's my bronze medal. Yes, because I got two more important moments for me in these games. But Tessa Virtue, Scott Moir, the beginning of a love affair with Canada. That was a great moment. They were untouchable. The beauty of their motion, the grace, dancing on ice is not as easy as it sounds. Actually, it doesn't sound easy at all. Just full disclosure, 2 years ago to the day I got engaged, right? And I did it on an ice rink surfaces. And I was on skate, and I had to go down on one knee. And that moment scared the bejesus out of me for a long time, and I pulled it off. Imagine dancing on skates. Yeah, exactly.
Those two are like iconic in this country now. They could make a stamp with them on it. They could put them on a $5 bill, right?
Yeah.
When there's currently a movement to change all the people on the bills, and they would probably be a good choice for some. Although Terry Fox is leading that charge right now, and that's a good choice as well. But
yeah, I can't argue there. Like, yeah, okay.
Look, what makes them the greatest? You talk about it. They absolutely are brilliant at what they do. Even a layman for ice skating can understand how what they're doing is very good. You get it. You see the difference between them, even if you're not a figure skating expert. And look, I will fully admit that among all of the Olympic sports, the artistic ones are the ones that I really need to focus a lot on to understand, because they're not intuitively something I watch on my own outside of Olympics very often. I try to do more of it now, but it's work for me a little bit more than others, right? But they're not work to watch at all. I mean, it also helps that they're both very attractive people. They're both very relatable people. They seem like, he seems like a guy you'd have a beer with, and she seems like
that image of him in Pyeongchang getting wasted at a Canada national team game.
Rep, yeah.
What you doing? That's a classic Canadian heritage moment right there too.
Exactly, and this was the start of that. And look, yeah, it's weird that a ice dance, not even the exciting side of the figure skating, this is the most technical of all of the figure skating disciplines, would become so legendary in this country. But they absolutely are, and they have an argument after they won the gold medal in Pyeongchang to be arguably the greatest ice dancing team of all time.
For sure.
It started here.
And they're not the ones that jump in the air and twirl. No, they're the ones that dance on ice, and they captured not only the attention of this nation and the entire world, but they captured the love also. So for me, that's my bronze medal for the 2010 Vancouver Olympic Games. Duane, your silver medal. By the way, you can see the medals on your screens. The medal were beautiful, nice molded metal with some waves and some native art in the background. Then if you look, it's kind of like a screenshot, or at least a graphic of a bigger and more of the graphics that were used for some of the imagery of the 2010 Vancouver Games, which were very heavily influenced by native art and by art of different tribes in Canada. So that was a beautiful design, beautiful choice for the artwork. And what is your silver medal for the Vancouver 2010 Games?
I went international with this one. It was the beginning of the Olympic career of a young woman who has ultimately become a legend in the Winter Games on the cross country skiing side from Norway. Marit Bjørgen won her first 3 gold medals. She's won 8 in her career, 15 medals overall. They started in Vancouver. This is one of the most dominant athletes of her era, of the Olympics period, and for her to start in Canada was something, and it speaks to the fact that there were a lot of great international performances in these games to top the bottom. This is the one that I thought deserved the most attention for me from the international side of things. Canada was not really a player in the cross country events at all, which sort of makes it perfect for me to pick one from that to be the one to represent the international. But I don't want to, even though we're hyper focusing on Canada's performance in these games, you can't ignore, Norway's dominance in this sport all over. And we talked a lot about that at Pyeongchang. It's getting even more dominant now, right? And this individual who won gold in Pyeongchang as well started her career then. It's kind of interesting to me too, and it speaks a little bit to the field. or the sport, I should say, that she was 29 at this point. She's so not what we would consider young for an athlete. That she would win 15 Olympic medals in her 30s, basically. Well, some were in her 29s, but basically from 29 on to win to be 28 and not have won an Olympic medal and be 39 and have won 15. That's a pretty significant thing to say.
No, and I guess also it's sport nutrition was to a point that is similar to today in 2010, which was not the case before, and training and all these things, especially when you're looking at endurance sports like cross country skiing, like long track speed skating. When you're looking at these type of sports, usually in your 30s, you also have great performances left in you because you have not only the abilities physically, even though you might be on the decline physically, the knowledge of your body, knowing what you can do, knowing how to push yourself in an endurance capacity, knowing when to give it all so that you have nothing left at the end. That knowledge comes with experience also. So I'm not surprised that endurance athletes to that level actually have great results in their 20s, 30s.
Yes.
All right, let's move to my silver medal here, and it's JCJ Anderson. What?
Yes, JCJ, I agree with you. Go on.
Yeah, JCJ Anderson, a gold medalist in the parallel giant slalom. To me, him winning in his hometown, winning where he perfected his board, and it's a great moment for JCJ Anderson and for Snowboard Canada. But they were actually not really getting along at that time. But good for JCJ Anderson.
Well, he retired after. He's retired a couple times since. Keeps coming out. Wouldn't shock me to see him at the next one. If he's in Beijing, no one's going to be surprised.
Yeah, like, hey, JC, how you doing? How old are you now? 50? No matter, he can still win.
Yeah, he is one of the originals, right? Like, he was right there from the beginning. He was in Nagano. So, if he were to go to Beijing, which I don't think he will, but if he were, he would be a rare Olympic athlete to be in 3 different decades. So this is a guy that was expected to win in multiple Olympics, kept crashing out, and finally got it done at home. And that's a great story that I had. The reason I laughed, Kevin, is because there's so many great moments from Canada in these games that I forgot about that one. But it was one that at the time felt like it was everything. And in any other Olympic Games, it might have been easily your gold medal pick. But there was just so many to pick from in the Vancouver Olympics from a Canadian perspective that I forgot about that until this moment. And then I immediately was back there again. And that's the brilliance of Vancouver 2010 for a Canadian fan.
Yeah, and for him, there's also the whole story of, like, before parallel snowboard wasn't like the thing. It was like just time and you were going down. That's what he was good at. Now it's not only that, you have someone you have to beat next to you, and he had to adjust and to evolve with the sport also. And then he started designing his own boards, and I guess he got the competitive juices working. And what better way to promote your boards than winning gold medals with them? And 2010 was a great moment in Canadian and Montreal, Quebec also sports moment. JCJ Anderson, bilingual, very important figure for skiing and snowboarding in this country. Now let's move to Duane, the moment of truth. It's time to talk about gold medals in the 2010 Vancouver Olympic Game. What is your gold medal?
Marie-Philippe Poulin and the Canadian women's ice hockey team. She won the gold medal. She had scored the winning goal in the game as an 18-year-old back then. Of course, she quite famously scored a couple other big goals 4 years later. Yeah. One of the legends of the women's side of the game. But more to the point, the Canadian women have a very unique relationship with the U.S. women when it comes to hockey. The U.S. women over the past 10 years have dominated them at the world level year in, year out outside of Olympics. But when the big game comes outside of the last one, Canada somehow always finds a way to win. And 2010 was just like the others, where there was questions going in about whether this team could get it done. A lot of the focus was on the men's, but the women's was not without focus, and there was still just as much pressure on them to win as there were on the men's. The difference being that the pressure on these young women was not also backed up with multi-million-dollar NHL contracts. So in a lot of ways, the 2-0 win for Canada over the U.S. in the 2-0, I'm so soccer sometimes, the 2-0 win over Canada over the U.S. in the final was just as good as anything I saw in those games. And in some ways, just like every other Olympics, that U.S.-Canada final game is more interesting, the highlight of any, even in the 4-year cycle, including the summer games. It is easily a top 5 moment that I look forward to in any Olympic cycle, summer and winter combined, men's and women's both. And for them to get the job done at home, I think there's just a lot you have to respect about that, and respect their ability to step it up, even though they had lost to the U.S. several times leading into the game, and they got it done. And was the story and it was almost the story again in Pyeongchang. They were close again, but they didn't quite get it done this time. So Marie Poulin, she is my individual I'm pegging out. She'd started her career then. I think she'll be around for a few more Olympics yet.
Yeah.
And the Canadian women's ice hockey team. And the hockey tournament in general. We didn't put the gold medal game for Sidney Crosby and all that on here, but really you can kind of include it here if you like, because it was so important for Canadians to win it.
I chose another moment. I went somewhere else. I went from a moment that when I say it, you might feel like, oh yeah, I forgot about that too. And it's a moment that happened in Whistler, in Blackcomb. It's a moment that is very Canadian, and it's about strong beer also. It's about the creation of a star in this country. It doesn't happen often that this country sees actually stars and TV stars being created at the Olympics. John Montgomery winning the gold medal at the skeleton competition in Whistler. Blackcomb, his hometown. The celebration with him and on the podium, and then going down the chairlift in the village of Whistler and stopping by the patio, taking that pitcher of beer, chugging it in a very authentic moment. You could not have scripted this and come off authentic. This was authentic. This was great. This is a moment that even if you would have planned on doing it properly, you would not have been able to. John Montgomery winning in a sport that is considered to be one of the most dangerous sport out there. Skeleton, a daredevil in the making. John Montgomery winning the gold, drinking the beer, and making us proud.
Yeah, that is the single moment that most Canadians, even if they're not sports fans, will still take on from that game, is John Montgomery walking down the streets of Whistler with a pitcher of beer in his hand. Very large Canadian
First
man
of all,
chugging a pitcher.
Who had that pitcher of beer? Do you think they said anything? Like, he took the pitcher, just left, to be like, sure, why not? No problem. Waitress, sir, server, give me another pitcher.
I've actually, on the 50th anniversary, they tracked down the server. They gave it to him. She was from Australia, actually. A lot of Australians work in Whistler. And she just saw him walking down the street and had a pitcher in her hand and decided that she was going to hand him a pitcher of beer because everyone was so excited. That's the long and the short of it. But, yeah, as Kevin just said, John Montgomery is a very big personality. He loved the Olympic Games. I think we'd get along. Us three would get along. We'd be able to have a beer and talk Olympics for a long time.
Yeah.
Because he basically he was an athletic guy, but he couldn't ever find a sport that he could dominate at. So he kept switching sports in his 20s until he found one that he finally could get to the Olympics with. Yeah. And he won the gold medal at home. It's a brilliant story that way.
So there's still a chance. So you're saying that if I start practicing air pistol, I might make it too?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the shooting. I was going to curling might even be gone now, Kevin. I'd stick with the aiming.
My knees, I don't think will permit me to have a long curling career.
Yes, John Montgomery, of course, now is the host of Amazing Race Canada. I found it quite fun a few years later. Melissa Hollingworth was expected to medal on the women's side, and she actually fell in a bad last run, and it was quite emotional. She ended up getting a medal 4 years later, so there was some redemption there. But if you remember that, then there was a very interesting reunion in the Amazing Race Canada where she was one of the team members that was competing, and when they were in Whistler, John Montgomery stood there on the edge with a pitcher of beer in his hand, and they had a little moment there. So that was kind of nice for her there to get there. It's just all those stories were part of this, and he was a bigger than life character from those games. It continues to be part of the Canadian psyche. There's probably a lot of Canadians now that know him mostly for his TV work now, but a great moment, and it kind of epitomized just that excitement around that final weekend, which I mentioned earlier on, which was maybe the best 3 to 4 days in Canadian sports history
Yeah,
in
for
terms
sure.
of
Olympic.
her ability to just win gold medals and be world champions and have the world's attention.
Olympic history for sure. By the way, if you want to watch the Olympic ceremony of Vancouver 2010, it is possible to watch it on YouTube right now. You can look also on the Olympic channel for a few performances from athletes in 2010. And if you look in the archives of CBC, you can actually watch every single event from Vancouver 2010. I have spent the last 2 hours not only working on the special graphics for this show and everything, but also watching a lot of events of 2010. And you know what? Yep. 10 years goes by really quickly.
I rewatched the third period of the last 10 minutes of the women's hockey game quite often. I watched the overtime of the men's hockey game. Have watched it quite a few times. You can watch it in its entirety. It is worth looking back on. The emotions and the excitement remains. I know a few people that were in the stadium, were in the arena for that gold medal game. Lucky for people. That ticket was worth tens of thousands of dollars that day, but
That's
I don't
crazy.
think it would have been priceless, right? If you had it. It's one of those things where you could have paid your rent for the year, but you would have wanted
like, who needs a roof? Who needs a roof?
I'll work for it. I'll work a few extra hours. I'm going to this game. No, look, final thoughts on it, Kevin. Just talking about it's fun. It is. I am famously on this show a much bigger Summer Games fan. I am. I love the Summer Games. I'm so stoked for this summer. But this was different because it was a home games, and it was also, as I said, kind of a cusp games in the sense that it started to add some new sports that really have given more back to the Winter Games and made them closer to par to the Summer Games in my mind. I'm talking about the Summer Game or Winter Games now. I'm going, I kind of wish we're having two in the same year again, but then I'd have to wait 4 years between.
Yeah.
So it's better. It's better for my ADHD to have them every 2 years.
Exactly.
And for the show.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's better too. We hope you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane, Duane. You know, I said don't touch that red button. Before we touch it one last time and go back to 2020, let's hear it one more time, just to make sure that it's stuck in your mind for the rest of the day. All right, enough of this. I'm done. Let's hit the button. Let's go back to 2020. And on that note, until next time, enjoy your Olympics.